Dying Light 2 is the long-awaited sequel to the 2015 fan favorite Dying Light. Its release in 2022 enamored gamers with its diverging manner of storytelling. Rather than the streamlined narrative presented by the first installment, Techland decided to present gamers a butterfly effect-esque experience, where every decision affects the world around the player and the eventual outcomes of the game. In the final events of the first game and its expansion DLC, we learn that despite the destruction of the city of Harran, point of origin of the infection, the virus had breached the quarantine wall of the city. Scientists the world over worked tirelessly to develop a vaccination. The successful development of the vaccinations defended against the virus for a few years. Unfortunately, however, the Harran virus, THV for short, had mutated and took the entire world by storm. The cities of yesterday have been reduced to nothing more than rubble and mass graves. 15 years later, humanity lives in a modern dark age, and the last city on the map, Villedor, receives a new visitor. We play as Aiden Caldwell. He is what is known as a pilgrim. That is, a person who takes on pilgrimages between the last vestiges of civilization in order to transport supplies, messages, or anything else people can afford to send in the apocalypse. Now, however, Aiden is on a pilgrimage for himself, in search of his sister Mia. Aiden suffers from amnesia, likely due to the experiments he had gone through as a child. He can't remember anything save for a few glimpses of his sister, a human testing facility, and a horrible scientist named Waltz. The few and far in between leads he obtains lead him to the city of Villedor. Aiden is instructed to enter the city through the underground railway system. There, he is chased by biters and bitten by a volatile. Dylan, his contact within the city, saves him with the use of a UV bar. After a short-lived meeting with the contact, where Aiden receives the GRE access key, they come face-to-face with the renegades. They fight, and the contact is gravely wounded. Dylan rambles on about the Fisheye, Lawan, and the Night Runners, but the names have no meaning to Aiden. They're just more leads to follow. Soon, Waltz and more renegades make their way to the pair, but Aiden hides away in a vent before he is seen. Waltz kills Dylan, and Aiden flees deeper into the metro. Eventually, Aiden finds his way out of the underground and emerges through an exit in the middle of the bazaar in Old Villedor. The people of the bazaar see Aiden doesn't have a wrist-mounted biomarker, a device used by the city people to measure the level of THV circulating in an infected person's system. If an infected person fails to be exposed to sunlight or artificial UV light for too long, they will turn into a zombie. The survivors in the bazaar quickly apprehend Aiden and begin to lynch him. Luckily, a stranger saves him in the nick of time. Aiden passes out and awakens in what appears to be an apartment. The man who saved him introduces himself as Harran and informs Aiden of the situation inside the city. Aiden remembers that he was instructed to go to a place called the Fisheye. He mentions this to Harran, but he informs Aiden that the Fisheye is in Villedor proper, and that Aiden had unfortunately emerged in a cut-off section named Old Villedor. Before being able to travel anywhere or getting access to any survivor settlements, Aiden needs a biomarker. After some unsuccessful looting and a very close call with the nighttime virals, Harran and Aiden find respite at the home of an old retired night runner named Cillian. The next morning, Harran reluctantly decides on searching St. Joseph Hospital as a last resort. The massive, dark building is a zombie breeding ground and proves to be very dangerous for the pair. Inside and on his last legs, Aiden is forced to shoot himself with an inhibitor injection. Harran describes it as something like an adrenaline shot. Supposedly, most people wouldn't survive an inhibitor shot, but Aiden luckily does. They find a biomarker and, by the skin of their teeth, make it out of the hospital with their lives. The player now has the chance to meet and work with the two main factions in Villedor. The Peacekeepers are a militant faction who use force to keep order in Villedor. The other faction is known only as the Survivors. They tend to keep to themselves and have no rigid governing body, despite recognizing leaders and light authority. Shortly after receiving his biomarker and meeting with the Survivors and Peacekeepers, the player, as Aiden, begins to make decisions based upon which faction they want to side with. However, at this point in the game, the decisions made are still of little consequence, as it is more so an introduction to in-game decision-making rather than making major narrative choices.
Whether Aiden decides to assist the survivors, he and Harran will be tasked with finding the killer of a PK commander named Lucas in order to gain access to the central loop. During a job for the survivors and their head of security, Sophie, Aiden saves Barney's life, Sophie's brother. This gives Aiden some respect among the survivors as he continues to search for the killer of the PK commander. After the reclamation of a water tower from some bandits, Aiden will have to decide between the PKs and the survivors in giving them access to the generated electricity. Either way, Aiden will investigate Barney's apartment. There, he discovers a slice of skin with a tattoo of Lucas's rank. This is evidence enough for the PKs to apprehend Barney and accuse him of murder. If Aiden gives the power to the PKs, Aitor is compelled to grant Aiden and Harran passage through the tunnels and into the central loop. If Aiden gives the power to the survivors, they develop a plan to sabotage a PK power source. Either way, Aiden's initial plan of safe passage will go south as a consequence of the conflict between the survivors and the PKs. Aiden will always discover that Harran actually killed Commander Lucas due to a scar on Harran that could only have been left by the commander's weapon. During the confrontation, Harran is shot by a crossbow sniper. The narrative-spanning relationship with Harran will be affected here. The player can decide to assist Harran by getting to the sniper, or they can abandon him to his fate. Regardless of any decisions made, Aitor and Aiden will meet at the Dynamo car factory. They work together to get through a tunnel and to the factory. Aiden is split off from Aitor and the PKs while he gets some generators running. During this time, Waltz and his renegades are attacking the men in the tunnel. By the time Aiden makes his way back, they've been defeated, and Waltz will take the GRE access key and will escape into the factory. Aiden suddenly comes under some sort of state of mindless savagery, kills the remaining renegades, and passes out. Hours later, he awakens and assaults the factory in an attempt to get Waltz. Aiden watches as Waltz uses the GRE key to begin some unknown process at the factory. When they finally come face to face, Waltz admits that he recognizes Aiden. He remembers that Aiden was one of the child test subjects. Waltz overpowers Aiden and is about to kill him until Aiden mentions the name Mia. At that point, he unhands Aiden but is promptly hit with a crossbow bolt. This gives Aiden a chance to take the GRE key. The sniper was the same person who shot Harran from the rooftop. Enraged, Waltz begins chasing both the sniper and Aiden. They have to flee through some more underground tunnels until finally they escape him. As the pair make their way through the tunnels, they converse about Waltz. Turns out the sniper has a list of people she wants to kill. It includes Harran and Waltz. When they come upon a locked GRE door, Aiden uses the GRE access key to get it open, and the sniper asks if he knows Dylan. She tells Aiden that he was well known in the fisheye and that it was apparent he was trying to escape the city. Aiden lets her know that Waltz had killed Dylan before he could make it out of the city. Aiden also mentions that he was instructed by Dylan to find a person named Lawan too. The sniper reveals that she is Lawan as the power comes on in the underground. Lawan also assumed that power had returned throughout the city as well. Excitedly, they exit the underground and emerge through an abandoned building where, while on the rooftop, the power suddenly returns to the city but leaves just as quickly.